And welcome back, friends, to another episode of Notes from the Edge. I am your host, Lisa Lacy, and this is the place we have the conversations we should have been having all along. In here, we talk about the things that you're not talking about, but we're gonna. And today's guest is where we have Jim Hughes in here today, and we're going to talk to you high achievers, you problem solvers, the founders who keep moving. Remember, guys, I did that for about 20 years and landed in a big old crash. Leaders who learn to succeed, but what happens when you get there and it's not what you thought it was going to be? Today's guest, Jim Hughes, is a coach, author, speaker, and lifelong adventurer, and then some, who helps founders and leaders consciously, we love that word in here, rewrite their stories that are guiding their lives. His varied path has taken him across 12 countries through a wide range of careers and into situations ranging from running a multi-million-dollar engineering business in Australia to skiing the world's longest giant slalom race wearing nothing but a G-string. For the past decade, Jim has worked with high achievers, always on entrepreneurs, sometimes we got to be off, who feel destined for more but can't find themselves. And in here, we're going to ask the deeper questions. And remember, in here, we're always interested in the better questions. So through his work at Untamed, I love that name, Jim helps people move beyond the roles they have inherited, the expectations they have absorbed, and the person they believe they should be to become the person that they want to be, and has a lot of fun. And Jim knows how to have a lot of fun. Hey, Jim, welcome to Notes from the Edge. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. What an intro.
Yes, well, that was you. That was you. It's always weird to
I was
hear
I
what
was
somebody
I was
else
hearing those words. I was like, did I write that? Wow, I'm so eloquent. I sound so wonderful. I sound much better on a podcast introduction than I am in real life.
You can borrow it anytime, my friend. I'll give it to you. I wrote it from your stuff. So yeah. So I love this, Jim, because my story and my upcoming memoir, Notes from a Certified Madwoman, pretty much tells the story of having the business, the house, the cars, the toys, all the things, and slowly spiraling behind the scenes while nobody knew it. So you say the person that got us here may not be the person to get us where we really want to go. So, how do we recognize when an identity that once protected us or helped us get to that 6 or 7 figure business is now becoming a bit of a limitation?
I think there's probably not a single moment in time. It probably shows up for everybody differently. I mean, my clients come to me at various stages of struggle, of frustration, and those frustrations show up in different ways. It could be full-blown burnout. It could be an undercurrent of anxiety. It could be very overt anxiety or self-doubt, a lack of confidence, a lack of energy. I think, generally speaking, there's an energy element to it, or a lack thereof.
Yeah.
A lot of the people I'm working with or talking to have developed this identity that they know the answers, that even if they don't know the answers, they're going to go forward anyway. And when they're in their sort of 20s and 30s, they've got the energy, they've got the bluster to kind of push through, even if it's not necessarily who they are. And at some point, whether it's age, whether it's external circumstances, whether it's just changing of internal shifts, they start to say, "Oh, okay, this isn't working anymore," and they can't necessarily always vocalize that. But it's the point, they're running out of energy ultimately, because wearing a mask, trying to be somebody we're not, having an identity that's predominantly fear-based is exhausting, it sounds like you've experienced.
Yeah.
So there's just a voice that's cropping up going, yeah, but is this it? Might there be another way, perhaps?
Another way, perhaps, and that's what you're here to help us with. I want to circle back to something that's so important that you said, fear-based. How much of what some of us are experiencing is actually underlying fear?
I mean, obviously, I can't give you a statistic because everybody's different, and I haven't been into everybody's brains, and I don't think anybody could figure that out. But I always share this to help people who feel self-judgment when they realize they're coming from a place of fear or deny its existence. We as a species, and probably all animals, have evolved to survive long enough to reproduce, to propagate the species, and we're good. We are not programmed, or we have not evolved to take enormous risks all of the time, because then the species would have died off a long, long time ago. So especially when all the chips are down, when stress is up, when there's a certain amount of uncertainty, we resort to fear, because, okay, if in doubt, stay small, stay safe, and let's just survive this. So I would say the majority of us, a large percentage of the time, are coming from a place of fear. Now, that doesn't always manifest itself as crippling anxiety, for example. That's an extreme example that you and I are probably both very familiar with. But it's not saying something to somebody. Somebody's got something in their tooth, and while you're talking to them, and you don't say something. That's probably a fear-based response, because you're worried about how they're going to perceive you for mentioning that to them.
Yeah.
The discipline that you don't impart on your child because you don't want to upset them is a fear-based response. A lot of the time, drive, ambition, determination is predominantly not 100% or either. It's predominantly coming from a place of fear, especially in my world. So there's loads of ways that fear shows up that we don't necessarily identify as fearful, but they're there nonetheless. And if we let it become the main thing, or continue to become the main thing, that's when we start getting really tired.
Yeah.
That's when we start getting really stressed.
And mental exhaustion, anxiety, depression, full mental collapse for me. And you're right, it does show up in many ways. I think the primary thing is, and where your work comes into play, is making things more conscious. Because see, I was on autopilot. I was a workaholic, and that's how I dealt with all of the trauma. And I would work and lift my head up and go, well, this sucks. And I go back to work, and I was great at work and great at achieving things in that area, but not great in my relationships. And I think when our relationships are healthy, we can then go on and conquer the world. When they're not, it becomes all that we think about. So I think, friends, what Jim's really pointing to is become aware of, is it fear? Is what is underneath the anxiety, the burnout, the exhaustion that he's mentioned a couple of times? Because if we're continuing to push, and we're pushing on exhaust and not pouring into those we love, care about, and serve, and into our businesses from a full cup with 110%, then the end result could be a pretty big crash coming. So, and our goal, and Jim's goal, is to catch people way before the crash. So if you're struggling slightly, if you're looking up, look up from work, guys, look up from work, and go, hey, is this what I want? Is this really working for me? It was, but, and the changes don't matter. It doesn't matter if it's age. It doesn't matter if it's, for me, menopause that hit. It just matters that we're looking around and going, there's got to be more. So, Jim, many high performers believe their relentless drive is ambition, right? This is good. Push through, struggle through, suck it up, toughen up. How can someone tell when their ambition is authentically them and real, or when it's just wearing an impressive corporate suit?
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to something you mentioned before about your example about having your relationships, managing your relationships, optimizing those. The first relationship you want to optimize is yourself, right? So if you're distracting yourself through work and you look up and you go, oh, this isn't working, well, I'm not going to sit with that for very long. Bang, you're not honoring all sides of yourself. You're not, and therefore you're not maintaining a healthy relationship with yourself, with the different sides of you. And that's the foundation of all of it. Because you've got a healthy relationship with yourself, all the other relationships are far easier to manage.
Isn't it amazing how they just transform when you just dig yourself as a human and you like your own company, and the others will just start to take on a whole new place in your life?
Well, I use this analogy of a cast list with all the different cast members on stage, all the different sides of Lisa and Jim or whoever it might be. And when you're showing up when a fearful cast member is on the stage with a microphone, there's a higher degree of chance that you're going to be prompting a fearful character in somebody else. Yeah. So you showing up from a place of love or from a place of abundance, it's going to have the same impact. You're giving people more of a permission to show up themselves in that way. So I see it all the time as people start to reconnect with who it is they really are and sort of honor these different sides of themselves that they've been too afraid to show the world, whether it's just a calmer side, a more vulnerable side, that all of a sudden their relationships start to change. There's a lot of clashing at first because people in the audience are like, hang on, you're not the people pleaser that I could steamroller anymore.
This boat is rocking. I don't like it.
You respect your own boundaries. What's all that about? And then so there's some clashes and people leave the auditorium. Some people are in the auditorium and they go, okay, well, this is a new version, and they start to love it. Some people have been waiting their whole time in this auditorium for this version of you, and they're like, oh, and the relationship deepens in the most beautiful way.
It does.
And then in the absence of the people who've gone, new people arrive because they're attracted to you for who you now are, not who you were before.
Right on, my friend. Yeah, and you don't have to work for kind of the toxicity to take itself out. It's a byproduct of you just working on you.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you just work on you, you're going to raise the vibration of this entire planet. There's no doubt. So, and everything around you improves. So yeah, I love that analogy because we talk about that a lot in here. How just observing and observation is not neutral. It's quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Once you observe that, whoa, I don't like myself. I'm fear-based. I got here in hustle drive, not I like this drive, finding my joy, finding my passion, all of that. And we're going to talk a bit about how people can find that working with you. So ambition, talk to me about your philosophies around ambition.
Yeah, the word you use there, authentic, about whether it's authentic or not. It's a funny word, that, because go back to this idea of the cast members. All of these sides of you are you, and they're all authentic in the sense that they have their story, they have their truth, they show up and they stand at the microphone looking to reasons why their story is correct, for better or for worse. What I'm always keen to help people to move away from is to those fear-based cast members to shift them aside, and for the love-based cast members to take the stage. Because the difference between what the analogy you're using, I'd like to reframe as, is ambition born from a place of fear, in the sense that you're driven to avoid feeling something? You're trying to move away from a particular state or emotional feeling? Or is it love-based? Are you trying to drive and succeed towards something? Now, it's never one or the other. It's not like, no, I'm either all fear-based or I'm all love-based. It's both. It's a case of which is the predominant one. And the people I'm working with, the people you've probably spoken to, and a lot of the most famous examples in the world, the ones who are quote-unquote obsessed, they're driven from a place of fear. I mean, how many of those stories did they have tough childhoods? Did they feel unloved? Did they feel unwanted? Or were they driven by a sort of a loveless, hard-charging parent or father? And so they're driven to avoid feeling unrecognized, to avoid feeling unheard or irrelevant. So they're moving away from something more than they are moving towards something. Or
trying to prove something. For me, it was that I was raised in the swamps of Louisiana in poverty, and I wanted to prove that I got out, right? So it was proving something to everybody else, not to myself, because when we're committing to ourselves to reach our goals, it has a whole different vibe to it than proving it to the world that, okay, she made it. She finally made it out, and we'll get the love, acceptance, adoration that never came. That never
Funnily
came.
enough.
Yeah.
Or it did, but when that fearful cast member is on stage whose story is that she's not enough, doesn't matter how much praise she might have received, she's not going to listen to it because it doesn't fit in with her story.
Yeah, because she's still telling herself that I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. Yeah. And you bring up stories, and I love the fact that you help people reframe their stories, because I think that's so pivotal. Because a lot of people are telling themselves the same old story and don't even realize it. It's playing in their mind on a loop, right? Talk to me about the stories people tell themselves and how important those are.
Well, I did a workshop the other day, and I drew on the whiteboard how a lot of people have a symptom shows up. Let's say stress, anxiety, burnout, to requote the ones we've already said, and they say, "Well, okay, I need to fix that. I have a problem. I need to fix it." And of course, they go online. They go, "How do I cure stress?" Right. Well, meditate more, go for a run, sleep longer. All of those things are wonderful, but they are addressing the symptom. Mm-hmm. And that symptom is the last sequence in a series of in a long chain, not the first. So yes, you can address the symptom. You can, if you're struggling to, if you're a control freak at work, you take on far too much. Hire a better team and learn to delegate. Brilliant. If your story is, I have to control everything to prove myself, it doesn't matter how good a team you have, doesn't matter how good systems you have, the story is going to remain. The narrative will stay, and therefore the patterns will stay. So you go back from the outcome, the response. Then before that, you've got the emotion. Or sorry, you've got the feeling. Then before that, you've got the emotion. And then before that, you've got the story. And that is being told by whichever cast members on stage. Their story, which, because you've created all your cast members, I created all mine, and they were created to get us through a particular moment or a phase or a pattern of our life that we don't like feeling in some respects. So their story is, wow, okay, let's use your example. I'm in the swamps of Louisiana. I feel unsafe. I feel hungry. I feel whatever it was that you felt at that time. I don't want to feel like this ever again. So I'm going to push myself. I'm going to drive myself. My story is, if I don't do this, I will end up feeling that. That's the story. And the longer that character took the stage, the more reinforced that story became. And it doesn't matter how far away, metaphorically or physically, you move from those swamps. If that character is on the stage, guess what? Your business, great. You've got a business, not big enough. Great, it's bigger. Now you need something else. Now you're working too much. What about all that? Story.
What? And then goal. And you reach the top of the mountain and the top of the mountain and the top of the mountain, and you're looking at the view, and you still don't like the view because there's always another mountain, right?
Yeah.
Until you work on this, until you work on the first moment. I love that you're going back and back and back and back to that very first moment that you felt that, when the story started. When did you start telling yourself the story?
I was having a conversation or a client session this morning with a guy who's 60, and he came to me through his boss, who I worked with one-to-one last year, and the sort of the symptom for him was he was flying off the handle a lot at work. He was really stressed. He was trying to control a lot of stuff. They were a team of like 70 underneath him, and it started to affect his leadership abilities, obviously, and the team. So after, I think it was this like second or third session, we realized that what was actually going on here was, at the age of 12, both of his parents had been diagnosed like medically disabled. So he became the man of the house. He started to have to figure out how to put money in the meter, how to order the coal, how to look after the house, how to bring food in. All of his freedom was gone. He became an adult overnight. And he had to support himself. Fast forward 50 or 48 years, he's at work, he's having an all right time, he's feeling like he's got a sense of freedom and agency. Somebody comes to him, or multiple people come to him and ask for his help. They need his support. It shows up as, how have you not figured this out yourself? But what's actually going on is, I'm frustrated and a bit sad that I never had the opportunity to ask for support when I was that age, when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So how dare you ask it for me now? Because them asking for support,
like people are pulling on him more. Yes,
they're taking away the freedom, just like when he was 10, sorry, not 12, just like at the age of 10, overnight was taken away from him. So that's the deeper story that's at play, and it was just manifesting in a different way.
Yeah, beautiful work. Isn't this work crazy? How we can carry something for 50 years and have no conscious awareness of it until we work with, what was the game changer for me was transformational coaches, which is why I became one, why I support them wholeheartedly. I have a team around you guys, have mentors, have coaches, because it is hard to see sometimes from the inside. So it helps somebody that has your back, pointing this stuff out and kind of holding you up as you walk through some of this stuff, because doing the deep level excavation isn't always, I don't want to say it's a trudge, because it's brilliant. Once you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't so bad, I want more. However, it can be challenging at first. So having support as you do it, and sometimes a coach can see things that you're just simply unable to see, especially if the pattern has been repeating for multiple decades, right? It gets stuck. You get stuck on that loop.
And doing it by yourself is difficult, because if the story is uncovering anything is going to be really painful, and I would have just proven that I've spent the last 30 years being somebody I'm not, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of resentment potentially associated with that. So why on earth would I then explore that story voluntarily? So having somebody else to give you the space and the permission to go there, and like you just say, to name things that they can see that you're not necessarily saying. I had a session this morning with online with a 30-year-old woman, very always on, self-doubt all over the place. But as she's telling me about it, she's doing it with a really lovely smile on her face. And I got the feeling that she was connecting with it intellectually, but not emotionally. So I asked her to try, like, drop down a level, like, what's actually going on? And she started to get emotional. And I was like, it feels like that it was an act before. And it was like, is that always happening? Because that felt tiring. You were doing such a good job of holding it together for me. Like, yeah, I know all this stuff, I'm good with it. But she was this far away.
I'm fine.
This far away from that emotion being right at the surface, and holding that all together.
Yeah. Holding it all together is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. And something's going to fall through the cracks, whether it's your relationships. And again, I think I have a congenital blood disease. I face my mortality every day. At the end of the day, it's not going to be the career, the house, the cars, the things that I'm thinking about or that you're thinking about. It's going to be the people we loved, how we served them best, our memories and our regrets. And most importantly, we don't want our regrets to be the memories we missed out on. So, and I think doing all of that, what you described in your current client, holding it all down, keeps us from fully being present, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me about that. What are we missing out on when we're not fully present? If we're working so hard to keep it all together and working so hard to keep everybody at bay, or whatever our thing happens to be that's been replaying since we were 10 years old, what are we missing out on?
Well, I mean, when you're not present, you're missing out on genuine connection. You're missing out on joy. You're missing out on so much love. It's tiring. So then you've got less energy to do all those things again later on. But it's really easy to get into this survival mode where we sense a threat and then we do everything we can to stay really alert to that threat. And the longer we stay in that mode, the more it builds up. And we get into what's called survival mode, where we become hypervigilant. We get like the equivalent of tunnel vision, and even parts of our body start to shut down, like our digestion is affected, our immune system is affected, because our body is in fight or flight, and it thinks that we are in existential danger. So it starts prioritizing, like spotting the threat and getting away from it, and deprioritizing the stuff that is so, in inverted commas, less important in that moment. But that happens to animals, right? So there's a gazelle in the long grass. All of a sudden it senses a tiger or a lion, and adrenaline and cortisol flood through the system. The muscles tighten, the heart rate increases, the pupils dilate. They pee and woo them. Pee and woo. They wee and poo themselves because all of those systems are not important in that stage. So they lose control of that and they just peg it.
Yeah.
And let's say they get away from it. Cortisol, adrenaline coursing through their system. They shake it all out. I think it's called a refractory period. It's quite short. I could be wrong with that. It's quite short. And then they just crack on as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
Because if they were to stay in that state, they wouldn't live for very long. But unfortunately, humans have got this thing called memory, and we remember this trauma, and then we start thinking about it in advance. We start future pacing it. So we've got all these, and it's not anymore, rarely is it acute stress that we're under. It's very, very rarely like obviously life and death, like we need to get run over or something like that. It's chronic, so it's drip feeding. So we get this anxiety in work, and it's every email we open up from a potential client or from a potential boss, and we see the name, we go, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. Oh my God, I'm going to go. And our whole body's like straight in this moment. And we don't have the time to shake that out of our system. We just sit with it. And then we go on social media, which adds to it. And then we read the news, which adds to it. And our body then becomes used to this chemical cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol, and it's slowly killing us.
Yes,
so
it can cause
the cost.
Chronic illness. Survival,
it kind of does.
Yes, survival mode can absolutely cause chronic illness. Our body just gets tired.
Yeah.
You know?
And how present, to answer your initial question, how present are you likely to be able to be when all you're doing is looking for threats? Did that person just blank me? Did they ignore me? Did they look at me wrong? Did I just say something wrong? Did I offend them? Am I going to get fired? Am I going to be found out? Am I going to be found out to be the imposter that I am? There's all of these questions that are on all the time. We're not going to be very present when those things are going on, right?
Yeah, on a loop. You know, mine was when I started reframing, when I first started my healing journey about 10 years ago, I would catch myself in the kitchen being on a loop and I didn't even know how long, saying, I'm so stupid. I'm such an F up. I'm never going to have healthy relationships. And I'd catch myself saying it, right? Making it conscious, observing it, because observation is not neutral. And it took replacing one thought at a time, one story at a time. And the statement of fact was, I'm actually a highly intelligent woman. But I mean, there would be times where I'd wonder, how long have I actually been sitting here telling myself these self-abusive thoughts? And that's what it is. It's self-abuse. It's a form of self-abuse when we are telling ourselves these awful stories. And you're right. So many times when we're stuck in survival mode, we catastrophize our futures. And when we are catastrophizing our futures, that's exactly what we're going to end up with. If we can't possibly, work with somebody that can help us see ourselves and therefore see a different perspective. Because sometimes it's as simple as you're looking right and you just need to look over here, right? You're looking right now. If you will just turn your head slightly, just change the angle slightly of where you're looking and look over here. And sometimes we can't see it in ourselves. So you encourage founders to focus more on being and less doing. So what changes? Instead of asking, where's that next mountain, or what am I accomplishing next? What happens? What changes when we ask, who am I becoming? Or I loved in your work, you know, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What changes for us then?
Well, we shift. It's an invitation to shift the story, to shift the cast members. And I keep bringing it back to this cast member analogy because for reasons you've just described, if and we've talked about already, if you've got a fearful cast member on stage or two whose story is, I'm not enough, I need to keep proving myself, I can't slow down because I'll be overtaken, or I let people down, then it doesn't matter what you change in your external world, you're going to end up with the same symptoms, the same feelings of X, Y, and Z. So that those characters focus on the doing because they love to stay in their head, in the logical mode. Okay, I have a problem, I need to do more, I need to plan more, I need to get more qualifications, I need to earn more. I started working with a client a couple of years ago. On our first walk, he described his business as, we've come out of COVID, we've got record revenues, this, that, and the other. I've got a really good team, retention's up. And I said, well, what is it you want to achieve? I really want to reach the sunlit uplands. I said, well, what does that mean to you? And he went, when I'm not thinking about the business 24/7, when I can feel relaxed and calm. And I said, great, what do you need to achieve that? And he went, well, a couple more years of growth. And I said, well, hang on, you've just had a couple more years of growth. Why can't you achieve it, feel it right now? And that was the moment when he started to realize that this was not a reality problem. This was a thinking problem. And Michael Neal, the author and coach, says, we think we have a reality problem when in reality we have a thinking problem.
Yeah. So we are in our heads. So
we're in our heads and we're trying to change the outside world, whether it's increase our bank account, have a bigger team, more qualifications to put on the back of our office wall. And they're all for naught if the cast member doesn't change. So I've written a book on this, and the title is Who Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's the invitation is to not shift anything in your outside world per se. Don't start there, at least. It's shift which character is on stage, because you switch characters to somebody who is confident and has inner peace and just wants to love and create an impact. The world that character sees when they look at the audience is vastly different from the one that preceded it. The world is the same. The audience is the same. They're pulling the same facial expressions. They're saying the same things, but they are looking at it through a different lens.
Yeah.
And so that's when the same character or the different characters all of a sudden can see all of the love that's in their life, all of the opportunity whereas an old character saw it as obstacles, they see as opportunities. Whereas old characters saw it as a threat, they see this as a wonderful chance to connect. So shifting the cast member allows you to actually, depending on who the cast member is, of course, allows you to actually see the view that you've just spent a long time and effort climbing up. It allows you to actually stop, turn around, and appreciate the ground that you've made and the progress that you've made, rather than constantly looking up at what's next.
Exactly. Stop and celebrate yourself when you hit these milestones. Stop and celebrate and take a breath and sit in that moment for a minute. Because for me, it was always, what's the next challenge? You know, what's the next thing to conquer? What's the next thing to do? I was definitely a doer. So you also talk about the hidden ways founders waste energy, precious energy, and you've mentioned exhaustion a bunch of times. So how much energy does it take to maintain an image? We talk about dropping roles, masks, and performances all the time in here, proving your worth, managing other people's perceptions, or performing a version of themselves that may not be who they even want to be anymore.
It's hard to put a figure on that, but for some people, it is a staggering amount of energy, and it's not just the energy of wearing a mask, for example, or putting. When I say wearing a mask, it sounds like a judgmental phrase of having a fearful cast member on stage who's trying to be somebody where that feels a little bit inauthentic. That's exhausting. But then what's also really exhausting is then worrying about what other people are thinking about that all the time, and trying to ascertain what's going on and second guess everything that they're thinking, not just what you're thinking. And then there's a third element of, well, hang on. 1 minute I feel really calm and composed and confident. The next minute I feel really confused. What the hell's going on? Oh my God, I should know this. I've been doing this, and this, and I still feel confused. I don't know what it is that I want. And there's that judgmental element that comes in. And in lots of cases, when I invite clients to consider it, that element is actually greater than the rest of them. I said, if you were to just accept for now that you can't make sense of who it is you are and what it is you want to do, and you stop judging that fact, you just acknowledge it, how much energy do you get back? And they all invariably, they're like more than 50%.
Wow.
More than 50% of that total cost is just the judgment that has come from the initial outcome. And the Buddhists
self-judgment.
Yes. Yeah, the Buddhists call it beware of the second arrow. It's like, it's not, I think I'm going to butcher this slightly, but it's not necessarily what's happened, your initial reaction. It's the follow-up. It's how you respond to that. So there's all of these ways that people are burning countless amounts of energy without realizing it. I had one client last year. I had a catch up with him recently, so he's front of mind. And he was a senior leader, and he was describing, it was actually off the cuff at the beginning of our session. He was like, so I've got my daughter's university exams coming up soon, and we're doing quite well with the revision. I was like, hang on, did you just say we? Wait, no, it was A level, so which doesn't mean much to you guys. That's like the ones you do before you go to university or college. So sort of 18 years old. I was like, what do you mean we? Well, I'm helping her with this, that. There started a conversation where I start, okay, I'm on a thread here. Let's pull this. Skip to the end. We've made a list of all of the people and elements of those people that he feels personally responsible for.
That's a lot to carry.
Both his kids, he feels responsible for their health, which is understandable. Being a parent when they're still at home, I understand that. Their exam results, their performance at school, their friends, their sporting achievements, their happiness, they're all his responsibility. Both of his kids and his wife, her career outcomes and performance, her health, and her relationships. All of those before he's even thought about his own. Like, how much energy would go into just the physical energy of like holding that, or I suppose the emotional energy of holding that, but then also all the energy of like constantly worrying, like, are they all right? Are they all right? What about this? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that?
Yeah.
Not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. That's the thing. There will eventually be a crash in some area, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationships, it's going to show up. And if you, again, you look up long enough and ask yourself the question, am I being congruent, as congruent as you can be? I mean, you can't go into a board meeting and trauma dump. That's not what I'm saying, but be as congruent as you can across all levels in terms of who you are and how you are. And again, it's enough for you just to inspire people to reach for what they want to be, because you are being who you want to be. That's enough. But boy,
and
that was a hard lesson.
But it's being intentional about it as well. So people say, well, I shouldn't show all of myself at work because there's a side of me that I don't want to show at work, and it's probably not helpful. And I'm like, yeah, fair play. but do so intentionally. Let's say you've got 5 or 6 cast members. What most of us do is we can't control when each of those is prompted onto stage, or who or what prompts them onto stage. And we're like, oh my God, I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling top of the world. Oh my God, I feel terrible. I feel really anxious. I feel really calm. I feel really... And there's an emotional roller coaster and a complete lack of sense of control as to when those voices take the mic, which is exhausting in and of itself. So like, well, I've got a board meeting tomorrow, or I've got a meeting with my investors. I hope I'm feeling confident. I'm going to try and do what I can to feel confident. I just hope I feel good on the day. That's just reacting to life and being a passenger. What I'm encourage everybody to be is take a step back to the role of director. So imagine yourself physically stepping back from your stage to a vantage point higher up where you're in a director's chair, and you can see all of your cast members. And you can see and in them intimately, and you can start to feel when one of them, maybe a fearful one, is starting to push to the front of the queue and they're about to take the mic, and you go, oh,
don't give them the mic.
I know what's going on here. This is a story, because at 10 years old, you felt like you were unheard and unseen. And now you think the same thing is happening as a 45-year-old in an investor pitch. It's not. We're good. Let's move aside. So it's not about showing all of yourself all of the time. And it's definitely not about masking all of yourself all the time. It's about intentionally giving the microphone to some sides of you, because you know that they will serve you most in that moment. And being able to sit with all of them without judgment either.
Yeah. The fearful ones too. Yeah. Don't judge those 100%.
Too. You need to,
because they helped you survive to this point. Yeah.
And they're still going to take the stage, and the more you can honor them and give them a platform in an intentional way, the more that emotion and energy is going to process through you, rather than being bottled up and coming out like
rather
that.
Than stick here, right? Stick right here and then cut you off from the rest of your body, right? Because so many of us are so cut off because we're trying to figure this out intellectually, and it's not an intellectual game. So, all right, you use this idea of the cast list. So you've been talking about it and using it as examples. Where did that come from? When did it click for you that, okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're playing our lives.
Yeah, well, there wasn't one moment. I remember watching a video. It was a Tony Robbins video on YouTube, and he was helping a lady at, I think it was his business mastery seminar somewhere. And she was an English woman, and she was struggling with, I can't remember what she was struggling with. And he kind of helped us see, like, oh, who was it when you first arrived and you felt really confident? And he'd write, give her a name. But he rushed through it. It was only a short video. And I remember thinking, oh, this is brilliant. And I you and I both know the thought of having different personas, whatever. There's nothing original about that. But it just that I then started using it in a kind of ad hoc way with clients. This was kind of back in 2018. And then I started to develop a bit more. And then I started to write my book on it a couple of years ago, which then obviously kind of cements it in your mind. And now it's the basis. It doesn't dictate my client sessions, but it is a foundation of my clients, and a very kind of a relatable image for people to grasp hold of.
Which
it's been an ongoing thing.
Helps paint a picture, and stories will stick with us. The analogies will stick with us. The visuals will stick with us. Well, we're coming towards our wrap up. Jim, you have had a lot of fun and play in your life. How do you help your clients find this very important piece of their own healing and recovery and next chapter?
I say, I don't think it's on this version of my website, on a previous version of my website, one of my values, fun was one of them. And I said, fun is the barometer of an aligned life, because I believe that it's certainly in a sustained way. You can have moments of fun, of course, if you're feeling stressed, but if you are if you're feeling aligned and centered and authentic, and you're honoring the different sides of yourself, and you're not judging the fearful sides that you used to or deny, there returns the energy, and you get that, you have the presence and you have the bandwidth to actually play and have fun. Because when you can't really play and have fun, I don't believe, certainly not like properly, if you're worried about how you're being perceived. If you look at any kid, they don't, like toddler, baby, they don't give a excuse me what you think of them. They're going to have fun no matter what. And there's such a raw.
That's why they have the best laughs, right? Because
I know
they don't
do.
care.
They do.
Yes,
they do. And I wonder if it's probably evolutionary. But I wonder if there's a reason, another reason we absolutely love kids' laugh is because part of us wish we just had that sense of unbridled joy ourselves. So yes, I don't always say, right, I'm going to help you have more fun, because that may not be their objective. But the byproduct of them honoring the different sides of themselves and becoming the person they want to be is, I'll use a certain term, a sense of lightness. Whether that shows up for them as fun or play or creativity, I don't know. But that pressure is not gone, but it's reduced, and there's a sense of lightness and freedom in its place. And for me, I just love playing and having fun. And I just know how important that is for so many other people.
Yeah. A sense of just feeling lighter when you're done, right? More consistently throughout our day. I think it's a very simple goal to set for ourselves. Can we feel just a little bit lighter more consistently throughout our days? Well, Jim, we always close out asking our guests 2 questions. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. The first one is, in your own life, what did you perform in order to survive? And what did dropping that role mask or performance do to better your life?
Funny, I've only really recently connected with that fully. If you'd asked me that 6 months ago, I would have given you a slightly different answer, which wasn't as deep. But I've realized, or wasn't as far back, I've realized that from the age of somewhere between, 5 and 10, 5 and 12, I grew up in a really competitive, intense household. It was loud. I was the youngest of 3 boys. My dad was very alpha, very dominant. My mum had to become quite masculine and dominant just to survive. She was also she ran a business in a very masculine world. Mm-hmm. So there's me, a little, whatever year it's called me, a 7-year-old and I was tiny for my age, not just for my family. And I sit there at the end of the kitchen table with my little legs dangling, thinking, like, subconsciously, of course, I wasn't capable of consciously thinking this, but like, I'm not gonna survive. I'm not gonna be heard here if I continue to be the sensitive little boy. And I wasn't quiet relatively to everyone else. I was quiet for my family. I was quieter than the other people around the kitchen table. I've been thinking, I need to be somebody different in order to just be heard here. So I became louder. I became brasher. I became a bit more rebellious. I used humor a lot more, but in a kind of cutting way to bring people down. That then developed through high school, where I did it to evade bullies. I used humor to get them to like me, because I was never going to beat them up in a fight. So that was my way of kind of reducing the threat. And then I lived in Western Canada for 5 years, where it was all about skiing and mountain biking as quickly as I could, and chasing girls to be impressive that way. And then in Australia, it became about my career, and that's where it peaked. That's where my peak stress was in Australia, where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm trying to be somebody I'm not. I'm running an engineering business in a world that is unfamiliar to me. It's a world that doesn't bring out the best in me, and I'm trying to be who the industry and my company want me to be, and I can't do this anymore. And of course, I couldn't phrase it like that at the time.
Yeah.
And so began the journey. Again, I can fit this retrospectively. So began the journey of me connecting with the different sides. And I learned to honor that little boy who didn't need to shout, who didn't need to show off all the time, who could show vulnerability and sensitivity. And if it wasn't for that, if I didn't allow that little boy onto stage more, I would not have uncovered the work that I do. And I certainly wouldn't be able to do it the way I do.
I love that. And I friends, we're gonna jot this down as one of our A great questions of the day. Is it bringing out the best in you? Is what you're doing across the board bringing out the best in you, not other people, but you first, and then others will flow into state. Well, Jim, what do you wish we were having more conversations about? What do we need to be talking about that we're not enough of?
A catch-all term: self-awareness. Just acknowledging what's going on, not denying it, not masking it with work or distracting ourselves with overeating or whatever addiction it might be. Even if it's not that extreme, there might be something blocking you. Just acknowledge. Just the first step is acknowledge. Just talk about self-awareness with other people and see where that goes.
With your word intention, right? Pick your characters intentionally. All right, Jim, this has been a pleasure. Friends, as always, we're going to close out for you and ask you to ask yourself, what have you been performing in order to survive, and how might your life feel lighter, to go to our convo today, if you dropped the role, mask, or performance? And with that, I'm your host, Lisa Lacy. We'll see you at the edge when you find the answer.